Ebullient greetings. I'm your host, Jackie Bird of Jackie Bird Spiritual Wellness, your guide to stress and anxiety relief, mindfulness, awareness, self-care, self-love, and personal growth. Welcome and thank you for joining me as we roll with peace in mind. Today's riff is Are You on the Right Train? Riding on the Urge. These episodes feature people who are doing their thing, they follow their heart and their passion, and they create how they want, what they want, when they want, and they are riding on the right train. Today's spotlight is Laurelle Rethke. But before I bring my guest on, got some stuff to talk about that's coming up in April 17th. To Forgive is Divine. That's my guided meditation and journaling workshop. And it's to help get you in the thing of forgiving. We tend to get a little tripped up about that. We think that if we forgive someone, that we're giving them a pass. Oh, no, 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 no. Forgiveness is for you. It sets you free. That's April 17th, 4 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. I hope that you join me for that. And April 25th, that Sunday, is my end of the month Stress Busters Guided Meditation virtual session. Come on and hang out. Good way to depressurize, de-stress, everything. And that's Sunday, like I said, end of the month, Sunday. That's at 1 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And I'm hoping that my overseas folks come join me for that. And without further ado, I should tell you where it is. You can get that information in the show description. And also check out my website, JackieBirdSpiritualWellness.com. And that's JackieBird Spiritual Wellness. Now, without further ado, here comes my guest. And so here we are. And I am excited as always excited because I have my girl, Laurelle, right here, right now. I'm going to call you a guru, girlfriend.
All right.
Okay? Because this is the knowledge right here. So without further ado, and yes, it's been a long time since we've seen each other.
Yes, it has.
And you look beautiful.
Oh, thank you. So do you.
Thank you. So I'm going to ask you to say your name and tell us where you're from.
I'm Laurelle. I'm originally from Texas, but I've lived in New York most of my life.
Okay.
Right here in Midtown Manhattan, holding down the crystal energies.
You are holding it down. Okay. So Laurelle, say your whole name. So if people want to, Google you.
Sure. Laurelle Rethke. And I have a new book out.
Look, we're getting to that. We are getting to that.
I have to go grab it.
Well, go ahead and grab it. So she's going to grab her book because y'all, it's hot off the presses. And the thing is, first of all, I want you to tell people before you even show folks the books. And this is so cool because as we are waiting for her to come back and sit down, you can see all these amazing crystals that she's got sitting here. I know those of you that are like amethyst, bang, zoom, you're looking right at it. And rose quartz. I mean, it's just, I don't even know how you sleep with all that energy in there.
I don't either. Sometimes I don't.
Yeah, man, that's like, oh man. Okay, so before we pop the book, tell people what it is that you do.
I help people to connect more deeply with themselves and the natural world. And I do that through a lot of different ways. I teach classes, I speak, do vibrational healing therapies with crystals and sound and energy healing and sometimes essential oils. I do consultations, I do all sorts of things. So anything around this realm. A friend of mine recently said, "You've created your own mystery school." And I was like, I always wanted to do that. I guess I kind of have.
and that's so beautiful. So do you have a title? What's your title?
Author, speaker, teacher.
Okay.
And healing consultant.
Because folks are in the titles, I find. They want to, you know what I mean? Because it's like, you can explain what it is that you offer. And they're like, well, what do you call yourself? Right. So y'all, there's a book. We're going to talk about this book.
It's Connecting with Crystals, and it's crystal wisdom and stone healing for body, mind, and spirit.
Mega Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
What's really awesome is, just in terms of my own education, there have been a couple of books that I've gone to. Now there's another book on the market for people to begin to step into working with crystals. And I think that's so fantastic. But we're not going to talk about that right now. I want to back up because I want to get to, how did you even get here? So prior to becoming more of a wellness advocate through nature and all of that stuff, what were you doing before that? We have something in common.
I was an actor, singer, dancer, theater person, and I had a lot of fun doing that. And it's a form of expression to me at its core, a form of connection with others. And I loved all of my time doing that. I'm a very creative person, and I do just a little bit of everything, is sort of how I always have been. Yeah, I was always a really spiritual person. And even when I was doing theater, other actors would come to me and ask me spiritual questions because it's just always been a part of my nature.
Right.
And so I really enjoyed talking to people about it all the time, all through the years. But yes, I was always spiritual and always had rocks around for the most part, usually as a necklace or a talisman of some sort. Had my fun in the theater, wouldn't trade it for anything. And then it was just time for me to move more fully into my esoteric studies and practices. And that's how I came into this.
One of the reasons that I do this particular segment on my podcast, are you riding on the right train? Are you on the right train? Is because, folks get to that transitional point where they are not exactly sure, they're not exactly fulfilled in what they're doing. And they don't necessarily have people around them that are supportive of living through their true self. Being in showbiz, I know for me, it was how I identified myself.
Yeah.
Because that's what we tend to do. We identify ourselves through what we do and not so much through who we are, because most of us don't even know what that is, really. We know, I like salmon and I don't like this and I don't like that. But in terms of that heartbeat, that what makes you sing, energetically, a lot of us trying to find that. So for someone who was doing a career that was fulfilling, what do you advise people when they get to a place of, I don't know if this is quite it?
Well, I would advise them to follow their heart and really live their truest self and their truest life as much as they can. The one thing that I feel like I misstepped on was at one point when I was in the theater, I just decided I've got to make this happen. I've got to really put all my focus and all my attention on it because I'm so close to kind of popping out of the box, so to speak.
Yes, making it, yeah.
Right. And I put all my focus and I kind of got blinders on to it.
Yeah. But that's not a mistake. That's kind of what you're told you have to do to be in the industry. You have to put all of your energy into it.
Sure. But what I realized after is if I had continued as fully with both my spiritual work and my theater work and not sort of ousted one to really focus in, I would have had a fuller experience.
Gotcha. So
for those people who are in a situation where they feel split between two worlds, in a sense, I'd say, don't let that get to you. Maintain the joy that you have in what you are doing. Don't get too tunnel visioned on things. Allow things to unfold naturally. And when I was allowing things to unfold naturally in my life, I was in a greater flow.
Yes.
But yeah, of course, it's not a misstep. I needed to do that so I would leave the theater because I was too burnt out and come more fully into all of this.
Because the thing about it is, had you not had that experience, you wouldn't be able to give what you give right now.
Of course, yeah.
Because that was school. Was it gradual for you to step into moving more into the wellness and what you were being called strongly to do, or was it more of a break?
Well, I was always super focused on health and wellness, and I was always spiritual, even
Right.
Well, I guess I took a few years away from the spiritual world, but I was always focused on health and wellness. So this is just information I was always gathering along the way. The big shift, though, was when I just was eventually burnt out, and I went camping for the first time with a friend of mine who had to basically drag me into nature to get me to go with him. He's like, I'm leaving town forever. I wanted to go camping with you this whole time. We have to go camping before I leave. So as he was leaving town forever, I mean, he lives in California now and he's been there ever since, he drugged me out to a camping trip. And that's actually when everything shifted. I loved it. I loved waking up in nature every day. I loved hiking every day. It was just so healing to reconnect with the earth in this way. And I had a knee injury at the time. And I said, I'm really concerned about the knee injury. He's like, don't be concerned. Every step you take, just feel the energy from the earth coming up into your knee and healing it. And by the end of that hike that day, my knee felt better. And within a week or so, the pain was gone after 5 or so years of having a glitchy knee. So it was transformative for me. And the astrology that was happening at the time supported me just getting back on this track. But that I didn't know what I wanted to do in this realm for several years after that. I was looking around and trying to decide. For a while, I thought it was going to be herbs because I'm very into herbs, and I studied essential oils because of that. I thought, well, this feels like an easier way to enter into the huge world of herbs. And then I went with a friend to the New Life Expo, which I'd been to maybe over 50 times perhaps throughout the years. And I was just walking with a friend and just going to see what I was interested in. And a crystal table showed up and I was like, hang on. And I took in every single crystal on that table. I visually just took it in stone by stone. And when I finished devouring the table, I popped back up and I was like, hey, all right, let's go. We talked and walked on until the next crystal table, and I had to do it again. So by the end of that fair, I'd probably devoured 6 or 7 tables of crystals just with my eyes. And I was like, maybe there's something here. And then it's like I got back into flow. Everything just started naturally showing up for me to connect with the crystals in a larger way. I ended up over the next 5 or so years studying 5 different lineages of crystal healing. So I'm drawing on a vast amount of information while I was also working with a gem and mineral dealer in the regular physical property world. So I was getting education all around. I was seeing new material all the time. Yeah, it's a huge part of why I'm different, I think, than a lot of people.
That we have in common, again, career prior, and also the introduction into crystals, because that's also how I ended up segueing into the wellness field and realizing, Miss Thing, you're a healer. Hello. And what I love about your background, as you just shared with us, is that it's not just the metaphysical meanings of stones. You also have the mineralogical. Woof, got that out.
Neurological?
Yeah, I sort of got that out. You have that information and that background. Because when I first saw you, well, first of all, I just want to back up a little bit. You and I met at Unitribe. That was the first time I met you.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I'd totally forgotten.
That was the first time I met you. And the irony of that is you talked about New Life Expo. Well, Unitribe was a fair within New Life Expo.
Right.
And I had my jewelry set up and you had your stones. And I was sitting opposite you, not directly opposite you. I was further down. It's funny because I can see the hall. I can see where you were set up. I was also introduced that day to an African instrument called the mbira. So that was kind of a pivotal fair for me, just in terms of like meeting you and some of the other people I met there, and meeting Kevin, who was sitting over there playing his mbira. And I was like, what do you got there? And then I didn't see you until the gem show on 57th Street at the Holiday Inn. And you were working with Rocco, right? Was that his name, Rocco? And that just blew me away, seeing you behind that table where most of the people there were really more into the mineralogy of the stones and not the metaphysical aspects.
Yeah.
So to see you back there, I was like, oh my goodness. Can you just tell us a little bit, about the differences so that the audience understands, particularly people that are new, have no idea about stones and those two different fields. Can you talk a little bit about the differences and then talk about how you even ended up working with Rocco?
The differences between the mineral world and the metaphysical healing world in regards to crystals.
Yes.
Yeah, especially back then, like 10 years ago or so, a lot of the mineral guys were very science-based and didn't really believe that crystals had any healing properties. The only magic to them was the perfection. If a stone had a really great color that you didn't always see, or the crystal was in its perfect shape form with no damage.
Right, damage.
Right, damage. Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's when they valued it. And many of them thought I was cuckoo.
I did.
I'm pretty sure one of them used that word. So, and they were like, Rocco, what are you doing with this girl who obviously thinks about crystals for healing? But he was like, I don't know, rocks feel good to me. I'm open to it. So it was, I'm sorry, let me get back to you 1 second.
So anyway, we still have this very beautiful view of all the crystals back here. And this is not all of them, because to the left, if you look down in the left-hand corner, there on a table are also tons of crystals. I mean, they're everywhere in the space.
All around me.
Yes.
And that's just the stones for sale. I have so many in the healing section, and I have all my beads under the couch and my own personal collection under the bed. They're everywhere. And it is true. It's like, how do I sleep in here?
Yeah. If I go into, I think it's Rockstar Gems before they moved to 26th Street, when they were up at, oh my God. Sometimes the first time I went in there, I had a headache. Just all of this. It took like a bit for me to be able to go in there without getting a headache. It was just like, oh my God.
Because it's a lot of energy in a small space.
Yes.
And some people, when they walk into my space, even though it's not as intense as Rockstar can be, they'll get to the door and they'll be like, oh, I don't know if I can come in. They're so sensitive to the energies that they're a little bit overwhelmed. And I go, hold on. And I go and I grab a Smoky Quartz.
That'll do it.
And I bring it to them and I say, just hold this for a minute and see if you feel better. And within a minute, they're in, and half of them are in the shop within 5 minutes, because they're like, wow, this really works. And they're like, well, how is this working? I just tell them Smoky Quartz reconnects our energy field to the Earth's energy field. Yes. And it allows us to dump the excess energy. And, that's what stress, anxiety, fears, all that stuff, it gets welled up in our energy field because we don't have that natural release to the earth. Walking around in rubber sole shoes, on concrete, in the city, or wherever you happen to be, you don't have that natural link to the earth's energy. So Smoky Quartz really helps you release that. And they're like, wow, well, it really worked. So I've had many, many people have that experience with me. And forgive me, my computer became unplugged. Yeah, going back to the other, at the time, it's just the mineral collectors just thought I was crazy. But then more and more science is actually coming out to support the fact that stones are healing. And, if you look into antiquity, it's all there, but it's hard to find. One of the lineages I studied was classical Chinese stone medicine with Jeffrey Ewan. This is information that's been known for thousands of years just through that one lineage. And Ayurveda has their own lineage, which is the natural healing for India. I would say indigenous cultures all around the world, they knew that holding a stone made them feel better.
Yes.
It helped align them with certain energies. They saw them as making them stronger or faster or more alive, or to help with healing. And what I love about classical Chinese medicine's take on it is Jeffrey would say crystals affect us on the constitutional level. Well, that's the physical level.
Right.
And he says this is where they are strongest in their work. But the minerals within the trace minerals within the stones that often give them the colors are really what help with the emotional, spiritual, and mental. But the stones themselves, the main components of the stones, are really affecting change of our bodies. Yeah. And so they are amazing, amazing healers. And so over time, a lot of these mineral guys have just realized that it's either a huge craze, that there's just a lot of people that are new people that are really interested in crystals and really interested in finding out about the physical properties. And when that's the case, they even can get excited. One, because it means more sales.
Exactly.
But two, because there's all these new people that are interested in this thing that they've been interested in all their lives. And they've been sort of this little sect of people that a lot of normal people think that's crazy. Why do you collect rocks?
Right. And that's so true. It's funny when you go, folks, if you've never been to a gem show, you really should go.
Yeah.
Because you can tell the hardcore folks that are science driven and geology, because you hear them, as you said earlier, talking about the cut and that's a piece of crap because they think the color is not good enough and there's damage, as you said earlier,
broken.
It's broken, it's not perfect, but you also can tell the people that are there for the energy. And that's interesting to watch also and take in. Folks that are like, oh man, I had this stone, I'm trying to replace it because my hip hurt. And when I had this stone, my hip stopped hurting. It's interesting to take in all of those energies on top of the stones that are there. It's a very fascinating place to be, I find, gem shows. So folks, if you've never been, find out where the closest one is to you and go check it out and just see. You don't have to know anything about them. Just see what calls you, what colors draw you, what shapes draw you. Don't worry that you don't know anything. That you come with your curiosity. That's the way you start.
Yes, exactly. I even had someone here yesterday, and this happens quite a bit, who said, well, I don't know if maybe I'm just picking them because they're pretty. And I'm like, but if you're picking them because they're pretty to you, and you specifically, then there's a reason for that. And we take in so much information through our eyes, especially of those of us who are visual, anyone in the performing arts and artists, musicians, even, like a lot of us are very visual beings. And so when we're taking that information in with our eyes, we're getting a download of sorts, and we really are connecting to that stone. Because even those visual people, they'll come back, a month or 2 months later and find a new stone and say, oh, this wasn't here before, was it? And I'm like, actually, yes, it was here before. You just didn't see it. It wasn't time for you to see it yet. Right. So don't doubt yourself. Totally go with what calls you, whether it's the energy, the shape, the color, how it feels. What matters is that you work with the stones.
And that's the truth. Because the thing about information is God, the universe, however you term it, will get your attention any way that can be gotten. Like you were talking about in terms of the visual, sometimes that's the way that stones get your attention, is what they look like. It's almost like when animals are mating and the male has all these colors to attract the female. Well, stones are not stupid, we think of them as inanimate objects, but they're not.
No, not at all. And the more you work with them, the more you know that they have a consciousness within that will communicate with you. I mean, many people will say it's your higher self, and that could be true. But my experience is it's more than that. And I have had amazing meditations where I've received messages that I wouldn't have expected to receive from energies that, I wouldn't have expected to connect with. I don't know how to say it. And, like if I have a client here for healing, sometimes they'll be telling me what's going on for them and what they want to work on for that session. And a stone, the picture of a stone will just pop through my head. And I don't usually get information visually that way. This is the only time I really get visual messages. Usually it's direct knowing, just information coming through. But when it comes to the stones, they'll pop a picture of which stone I need to grab, even the exact one that I have 6 or 8 of them, or let's say, even the exact one that I need to be using will pop into my mind's eye.
because I have the same experience where I can be talking to someone on the phone and they're telling me, oh, blah, 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 blah is going on and da, 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 da. And I'll get the same thing. I'll get a picture, a visual of what stone. And what's really cool about that is I'll say, oh, I suggest you get blah, blah, blah. And then I'll go look it up. And it always, 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 always coincides with what was going on with that person.
Yeah.
Always. Even when I'm kind of like, really? I would have thought of another stone. I wouldn't have thought of that stone.
Exactly.
Always, always, always checks out.
Yeah. And even beyond what we understand and know about the stones, I mean, we understand the colors and how that affects us physiologically. We understand the mineral content and how that affects us. We understand the cell unit structure of the crystal and what that can mean. But there's so much more that's beyond our fullest comprehension that we don't even understand how we connect to. A few years ago, they proved that scientifically, somehow, they proved that our mind connects to 11 different dimensional realities. And they also, in ancient India, said that each of the chakras, the energy centers of the body, connects to a different dimensional reality. So I'm like, we're connected to all these different dimensional realities. We're not even aware of it consciously.
That's right.
There's so much more that we don't really fully understand or know. And that's why, just like you said, when people come, I always say, see what calls to you first. You have these questions, you want to resolve these things, great. We'll talk about it after. But see which stone calls you, because your body, your soul, your spirit knows more than anyone else. This is one of the ways they're empowering for us, because we have all these questions. We're putting our power outside of ourselves, asking someone else for help, but we have it all within us. And the stones can help to teach us that, because then they'll pick 3 stones and they'll be like, okay, which one of these works for this? And I'm like, well, actually all of them do. And I'll tell you how. And then they have that aha moment where they're like, I did actually know which stones I needed. And that's empowering. And that's what we need. We need to really know and understand that all the information is right within us if we just trust and open to it.
That's I think sometimes a lifelong journey for people, is because we are taught, you don't know enough here, you need to go to an expert. You don't know enough here, you need to go. And we're not taught in this society that we actually have the barometer within us and the guiding point within us, that our inner selves, our inner beings, whatever you want to call it, our God self, our divine self, however you want to term it, that is within us. Anything that you can do to unlock that, where you can be connected to it, where you can hear, like we all have intuition, but most of us just, because there's no quote unquote facts. And if you think about it, what exactly is a fact? What is that exactly? Because 2 people can see things completely differently. It's like we need to question more the things that we take as truth. And I find and have found in working with crystals and gemstones that it helps kind of block out some of all of that noise, because it helps to connect you. Now, on that, connecting, let's talk about that book, girl. Okay. That beautiful, beautiful book. And I hope that you open it and read a little bit.
No one's asked me to read before. So this is Connecting with Crystals. It was put out on Castle Point Books, which is an imprint of Macmillan and St. Martin's Press. So it's on Amazon. Please order on Amazon in January for sure. Yeah. And it's on Amazon. It actually was a #1 hot new release in 3 categories, including rocks and minerals and divination with crystals. So yay. But it's at booksellers everywhere. So Barnes and Noble, Books A Million, many, many different places where you can get the book. If you're in Manhattan, I still have some here as well if you want to come by to get one signed. What's great about this book to me, people have been asking me, what makes your book different? And it took me a minute to figure it out. But I think what makes it most different is, well, one, it's over 250 crystals, which is great. It is a good amount of stones to be covered when it comes to working with stones. It's a good number. Most healing therapists I know don't work with more than 300. So, and many work with much less. So this covers a lot of the main stones. or I would say most of the main stones. But what makes it different to me is the first chapter, it opens with, why crystals? What is it that validates them in some way? But then from there, I go into how to use crystals for healing. So I cover some fundamental information about the chakras. I cover things like selecting stones, caring for them, cleaning them in a deeper way than most other books do. And then I talk about meditation with stones, gridding with stones, and sort of lead the reader to play and follow what feels right to them, and really come into that innate and intuitive wisdom that we all have by working with them. So that's, to me, what makes the opening chapter different, is it really goes, so here you can see how crystals work, talking about the chakras. I go into stones for each of the chakras as well, plus talking a little bit about each chakra, selecting crystals, even a basic set if you're not really quite ready to just feel it out for yourself yet, just to get you started, how to engage with them, and meditating. So all that thing, sacred geometry, a little bit of sacred geometry for the grids.
Laurelle, can you can you speak briefly about grids? Because folks, and I'm going to have all of Laurel's stuff in the description and the show notes so that you can find her, so you can follow her and all that stuff. If you follow her on Instagram, she puts down these beautiful grids. Part 2 drops next Thursday, April 8th, so be sure to come on back. I hope that you enjoyed that and was thoroughly inspired and uplifted by what you heard. If you are in a situation currently that is unfulfilling to you, be it a job or a career you've been pursuing, and you feel like there's something else that you really want to do, or you already know what that is, get quiet, sit still, breathe in and out deeply, and begin to envision what that is that you wish to create. And remember, there's nothing too big. It's only small ideas. Think big and write that down. What is it that you wish to create? Write it down, put it in your phone, speak it out loud to people that are supportive of you, and go for it. Go for it. Don't delay. Start now, even if you plot in your mind what your escape plan is going to be. But go for it. This life is meant to be lived to the fullest. Take advantage. No matter what is happening in your life right now, there can always be room to create more. Thank you so much for listening. Please remember to visit JackieBirdSpiritualWellness.com, join my mailing list. I've got workshops coming up, as I mentioned earlier in the program. I have audiobooks, guided meditation videos, and audio and meditation music, everything for inspiration and to help you relieve stress, increase your mindfulness and awareness and presence. And remember to always roll with peace in mind.